Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jeremy, founder of QuickMail.io.
And this is Omar with ZenMaid, and today we are going to be talking about operational bloat, which sounds really weird to say, but
Or
you
fighting
know,
inertia.
or fighting inertia. As yes, when we were talking about this before hitting the record button and trying to figure out the terminology that would work best here. So, yeah, I thought that this might make for an interesting topic just because we had something come up today in a meeting earlier today with my head of marketing where she was suggesting involving one of our third-party contractors with a little like redesign that we're working on. And it's a good idea and it makes a lot of sense in order for us to like execute this to the best of our ability, but it also means by involving them that it's probably going to take, the turnaround time from maybe a week to like 4 to 6 weeks, right? Which just isn't really like acceptable. And so yeah, that I was just sharing that with Jeremy before we started recording, and so we thought that we would like chat about that. So yeah, I mean, Jeremy, like I feel like you're beginning to grow. Um, you're
Yeah, look,
beginning
I'm
to
growing, like
yeah.
slowly, I'm growing. Yeah.
Um, you're beginning to like to grow and beginning to I think like see that stuff. Like, what are you trying to do to keep the team moving fast? Because I feel like I'm constantly battling with that of like it feels like more and more we do things on like 3 month sort of timelines, and that just feels far too long for me these days.
Okay, that's a great question. Because
Yeah.
obviously, if you want, there's a typical saying, which is if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with people, right? And
Mm.
I think it absolutely is right. It's absolutely spot on. For what that said, I say there's some areas in which you want to be fast and some in which you don't want to be that fast because um okay that's interesting. There are a few different forces, but basically if we want something done, we want it done as fast as possible and then polish later. But as we are growing, this luxury, I think it's a luxury, honestly, then it's less and less available because you got like more and more layers of approval, of need to check, or quality insurance, whatever kind of thing that makes it very hard. Like at the beginning, like we had also, it's not just growing in terms of people, it's also growing in terms of customers. If you had like 5 customers on your platform and I was like checking every day like cowboy style, I don't care if it breaks, like let's go, let's do it. Now we have like thousands and thousands of customers. This is not something we can really afford. Our customer value the stability of our platform. So therefore, there are some slowdowns here to make sure and ensure that the code we check in, for example, is correct. But on the marketing side, it's like go, go, go. We don't need, to add extra layer of things like, yeah, let's get the first version done. Like we had a chat at the beginning with we're trying a new initiative this year, which is the webinars, like 2 webinars a month, pretty much. And so at the beginning was like, oh, well, we need to do this. And it's like, no, let's do the webinar in 2 weeks. Like, let's go, let's start. I want one webinar. Let's get going instead of trying to get it like nailed pitch perfect, maybe in September. And then you only got like 3 months for the benefit, on that webinar during that year. In fact, I even say like, hey, let's do one webinar every month, but I want one already, starting in February already. We were like mid-January. And to their credit, he came up back with like 2 webinars per month because he did the calculation and realized actually, yeah, we need to do more webinars if we want to reach our goals. So we only got 52 weeks in a year. We can't waste any week. Let's go. And it's okay if you don't have enough time to promote because there will be the next one already anyway. If the first one has only 10 people, then so be it. The next one may be more and so on. But yeah, I find myself a lot into pushing the agenda or pushing stuff to make it happen because there's this tendency of making it perfect and there's this tendency of not making any mistakes. But some places it's bad to do mistakes. We need to optimize for mistake minimization, and for other we need to optimize for speed. I don't know. That's like a big
Yeah.
ramble from me.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that that about summarizes, right, that I'm always trying to think about what mental models I apply in different situations and beginning to like slowly over time sort of transfer those to my team and document them where possible. So like the reversible, irreversible thing is a
That's a
very,
nice
very big
framework.
one, right? Yeah, yeah, like ability to iterate is another like big one, right? Is like how hard is this to change after it goes live, right? So today it was like, the team was talking about holding up this project for potentially 5 or 6 weeks because of text changes. And so that's where I was like, no, no, no. You take it live in the next week with the best copy that you have available to you because we know that this design with the current copy is going to like the new design with the current copy is going to be like an upgrade here, right? It's a shift that we have to make, change the rest of the copy in 5 or 6 weeks, right? So that's like a big one. Um, yeah, I mean, it's just a challenging one to sort of teach people how to prioritize things and everything, right? Because like even with technical stuff, we have a lot more sort of like regulations and stuff around like testing, but we've also tried to keep it like smart where like there are certain things within the system that it's perfectly fine if they
Yep.
change without any testing because we know that like what it'll break, it's easy for us to fix and it's not something like with you guys might break something and then like 100,000 emails don't go out, while you're getting that issue fixed, right? So we have
Yeah.
some things where it's like, okay, like this isn't going to corrupt anything like critical or like timely. If we were to make the mistake, we can just push changes fast here, and then just undo the mistakes if we make them or whatever. And so, yeah,
Yeah, a
I don't know.
typical thing
It's
for us is like a change we
mm,
make in the admin dashboard, which is only for us. If it breaks, okay, well, we'll
mhm,
shout and then get it fixed, but no customer will be impacted, for example. Those sort of things are like,
yeah,
let's do it. Yeah, yeah, sure.
yeah,
The
yeah,
the efficiency is also important for me, as in like the tendency of people is to do things sequentially. Like again, I'm going to take the webinar because it's very recent in my mind, but the webinar was like, hey, let's get that person to agree, and once they agree, then we go to the next stage, and when we go to the next stage,
yeah,
it's like, dude, can you already prepare the next 3 stages, which is like, preparing, doing your placeholder for those things, and then you can change the text later. So a typical landing scape already for capturing leads, even before we don't have, we have the speaker, those sort of things can be put in place. There's no need to sort of like wait. So those are other things as well. So it's not really that there is a will to be slow. It's just that sometimes there is some muscles that are not necessarily well worked out for personal efficiency. So there's a
mhm,
few things, and it's always funny how big companies, they want to sort of like emulate the startups for their speed, because like they're envious about like
mhm,
how fast we can churn new features in and stuff like that. And the startup wants to emulate the big one for the branding and the big customer and the big money kind of thing.
mm,
So it's always funny, this sort of like duality stuff, but definitely speed is an asset. It's a strong asset. And sometimes you can be like street smart, speed smart. Exactly, like I just mentioned, like create some placeholder. You'll see the text later, but at least everything will be done, and all you need to do is the small change when we agreed who the speaker is or stuff like that, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I got a couple things that I like noted down there that I think so. One that I think directly ties into what you were just saying is kind of feedback loops and when you get feedback loops. So, like, I always want to get feedback loops and for our team to get as many feedback loops as possible when we're doing anything, but knowing, like, okay, it's okay for us to take this sign up page live and to get the feedback loop from live traffic versus like when we ran like the maid summit for example, we could only like make some of the actions once, right? Like once we'd sent out the email blast to everyone, then like the marketing angle that we'd taken was determined, so we had to run that for feedback loops well before we sent it out to the entire like email list, right? And so that's something that I think is yeah, interesting like to think about. I was also going to say that we I think you were talking about kind of doing like things sequentially. What actually made me think of is more like the number of times that we do things, that a lot of people try to optimize for doing something once because they think that
Yes.
doing something twice is like wasting time. And that's something that I've tried to kind of hammer out of like some of my team members' kind of mindset of like, guys, like there's nothing wrong with you doing this work twice, right? The second time that you do it is a different like round of doing the work. It'll be better that time, right? But like we don't always have to optimize for only doing this one time. Sometimes it's you do it to the best of your ability right now. We collect 6 months of feedback and then we come back and we do it right. And even if we think we know what we're going to do in 6 months, we still wait that time, right? So that's definitely helped with in terms of just kind of like the operational bloat, because I also think that one thing that I don't know if this happens like to you guys much yet is we would get people going, okay, so we need to do this email sequence, but we can't take this email sequence live until we have, and they have a list of like 28 things, including like making sure that one of the emails like involves an influencer who we currently don't have any sort of relationship with and stuff like that. And it's like, no, just take everything in this live that you can as quickly as possible, and then we can fill out the rest of the gaps.
Yeah, there's a few things. The sort of like same vein is people trying to
Yeah.
optimize too early. Like they're trying to, yeah, but I need like this doesn't scale or whatever. Like I don't care, just let's freaking do it. A good example, for example, Paul, is last week we tried a Black Friday deal. It's the first time we really try one. I'm really opposed to Black Friday and so on, but we tried something. It wasn't including about lowering our prices. I think it was just like, hey, you start paying us later, kind of thing. And
Mm.
we put it into 1 week. We learned a lot of things. It didn't work out quite well. It did work, but I didn't like how it worked for us. But the point is that if I wasn't involved, it's hard to think that people would have um, take it upon themselves to actually do those initiatives, right? And so as the founder, it's like, and we're 100% bootstrapped, and 100% like there's no one else I have to answer to, right? So
Mm.
if I say something, this is fine. But as the organization grow and other people get in charge of stuff, then there's also a cover your ass type of mentality, which is like, oh, I can't put this because if this goes wrong, so I'm going to put other people in between to sort of validate those steps. And so that delays even more again and again. And I've seen that countless times in companies I was in, like no one's really wants to take charge of it because they don't want to be the one responsible if this goes wrong. And so they add a, arbitrary level of approvals or direction and so on. So, it's always the latest one that's sort of like get the blame. And I've seen that like slowing down tremendously, companies almost close to a crawl, honestly. So
Mm.
as in all companies, we're like a small company. It's very easy. I can make the call very quickly. Let's do it this way, whatever, and so on. And then instead, I think it's closer to the Netflix stuff, like installing some sort of like, hey, you're solely the captain of this. You take your bets. You have to make bets. You're the captain of it. Some will fail, some will succeed. We trust, we hired you, which means we trust your judgment. And so that's one way to sort of like induce speed in changes. But other than that, it's tough to think of a big organization that doesn't, have all these extra layers of covering your ass, which, adds on, slow down tremendously things like, oh, a Black Friday next month? No, we can't do it. We need at least a minimum of 3 months. We got legal to needs to be involved. We got whatever and whatever and whatever.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
one
that's
of the
something
reasons that
hard to fight.
Amazon is so impressive. Is like
Yes.
Amazon's done a really good job. They're massive and have managed to really fight that sort of like bloat. They still manage to really like get things done and move things along, which is quite nice. So,
Yeah, but the question is like, did they
yeah.
really? And that what I mean by that is like, there's probably just a key people who are like immensely empowered, like sort of like Bezos say like, go for it. I don't care what you do, just go for it, full in. Like we believe in the long term of this. You can lose money, you can whatever, just go for it. That, increasingly free the action, but I don't think that's the case for anyone on the floor, whatever, right? So It could be
No, I
certain
think it pretty
people.
much is. Like, of course, not
I don't know.
anyone
I
on the
haven't worked
floor,
in
but
Amazon.
but
I don't
but
know at all.
but okay, if you read some of the books, it's company wide. It's not just a couple people. Amazon, because you'd have heard of it, of like people, like Johnny Ive at like Apple, if it was a couple of folks that were leading it. Like when you look at how Amazon has operated in so many different arenas and been very competitive and innovated in different arenas, it's very much like yeah, like a company wide like culture like thing in terms of how they manage the teams and allow their teams to move fast separately of anyone else in the company. So it's quite
Fine.
impressive.
So they had this type
Yeah.
of 3-pager that people needs to agree on before
Hmm.
moving on. I think that's their way of cutting through and then getting stuff, but they do have like board of approval and so on. So I don't think they can react within 1 week, but they're very impressive in terms of reacting compared to other giants like them. And so because they got all the resources and so on, I think that works super well for them. But they are
Mm.
they are slower than a typical startup starting stuff, obviously.
Yeah, in a typical startup, yeah, I would agree with that. But
But you're
yeah.
right, that's a good
Um,
things to study in order to fight inertia as you're growing. There's definitely lots of things to learn from
yeah.
that.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think about just kind of like, yeah, well, which way you want to go. Because I just kind of decided that like I don't really think that I'm going to be looking for anyone to really come in and innovate for ZenMade unless someone kind of naturally exposes themselves as that to me in like the future. I don't really think that I'm going to be able to go out and find someone that's actually going to be able to sort of change the direction of ZenMade versus like kind of right now, if I were to leave, where it would just be the team would continue to do what we do better and better, right? But like,
Yeah, so it's like the
you
Tim
got to have
Cook
kind of that.
versus the Steve Jobs type of thing,
Steve
right? The
Jobs,
Tim being
exactly.
the operational guy, the sort of
Yeah,
like, peacetime CEO type of thing, like,
yeah,
making sure
yeah,
everything runs
exactly.
super well, versus, coming up with a brand new product that, has like, what
Yeah,
is the Apple scooter or whatever, or the,
hmm,
whatever the next product.
yeah,
It's like, no, it's going to be iPhone 25, whatever. It's going to be a great iPhone, but it's still going to be an iPhone, you know.
hmm, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Let's see, what was the last thing I had? Oh yeah, last thing that I had noted down for this in terms of operational bloat is so I challenge our team when they're talking about getting things done and figuring out timelines and like and all of that stuff, is I ask them to always ask themselves like what would it look like if we had to get this done like by the end of the day or by like the end of the week or on some much much shorter time frame than what they were thinking. What would we do to like to get this done in that time frame? What would be cut out from the project, right? Essentially
That's a
like
good
thinking like
one.
essentialism. And then also, what if we had all the time in the world, all the resources in the world? And then, of course, every decision that you're making is on a spectrum between like those two things. So it's kind of envisioning what would be the
Next year.
perfect way of doing this, and then what would be the fastest way of like of doing this, and
Oh.
then coming to the conclusion. But usually, it's obviously much more on the side of the former, of like, okay, how do we get this done like in a week, and then iterate.
Yeah, I think for the Black Friday last week, I think it was just like a week. It's like, hey guys, next week is Black Friday. Can we do something? And so that's, sort of like how we came up with it. And then one was like, oh, there's no chance we can, put up something. And I'm like, dude, do you want to wait 1 year to figure out, the data? Like, do you want to wait one more year in order to get some information? Because there's only one time in a year where you can get it, is at Black Friday, right? So let's create something very simple, very quick, and then see if catch anything. So next year we're already equipped with more information and more knowledge. And it's like now and then it's like, can you actually do something very quickly in 1 week in order to save 1 year of data, right? And I think for me it was like so obvious, like let's do something quick if we want to do something better next year, and at least we'll get some information, some data.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, my only thing there is that it's not really like a year's worth of data because you're talking about like a couple like day sale. But I see your point though. It is a learning opportunity, and the feedback loop only comes like once a year.
Exactly,
But
that's what I meant.
Yeah, yeah, we did something similar. I don't remember what we actually did, but we ran like a Black Friday or a Cyber Monday deal. But I was telling you this but before, I think in one of our mastermind calls. So we're doing like monthly like email promotions to our list this year. So every single month we're going to be like selling the list on the software or some other info product that we have. So we'll see if that moves the needle much.
Let's stop there because I think this is
Yeah, I was
for
gonna
another
say, yeah.
cast.
Yeah, I was gonna say for sure, for sure.
All
Maybe
right,
maybe that's what
so
we'll talk about next. But yeah.
one other
Anything
thing.
else to
No,
close on this? Yeah.
for me, no, but I really like sort of like framework like you introduced into this
Mm-hmm.
episode, which is like, what if you have to do today, increase the speed of iteration, make things, irreversible or not, prioritization, personal efficiency, and I think culture as well, prevent, cover your ass
Mm-hmm.
type of culture, sequentials versus parallel, and don't automate too early. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
part of those
Yeah, I like
things
that.
to
Yeah, I
unpack.
think if we put that together in a little list for Twitter, we're gonna go viral.
Boom. Like, let's do a
You heard
Twitter
it. You
thread,
heard it here
everyone.
first. Yeah, you heard it here first.
All right. Cool. Well,
Nice.
speaking
Let's
of
do it.
which, it's just Amar on Twitter and Jay Chatelain. So hit us up.
We'll see you guys over there.
All right.